My name is Amy Traver. I'm an Associate Professor of Sociology and of Education here at Queensborough Community College. It's a pleasure to be with all of you today for the third event of the 2015-2016 Kupferberg Holocaust Resource Center and Archives Colloquia Series, Gender, Mass Violence, and Genocide. While today's event is not being held at the college's Kupferberg Holocaust Resource Center, I'd like to get a poll of how many of you have actually been there before. So raise your hand if you've been there before. Hopefully Dan has, yeah. Okay, wonderful. That's definitely the majority of you. That's great news. Please don't forget about the center, even though we're not there today. It's a wonderful campus cultural resource. And please also don't forget about the generous support provided this series by the centers and the folks who work there, its donors, and a National Endowment for the Humanities Challenge Grant. And as a reminder, we are in the process of thinking through new opportunities for internships for students for spring semester. So if you are moved by this series or any of the events in the series, please think about applying for one of the spring internships at the center. Also, if you're a faculty member in the audience and you're interested in this series or the opportunities provided by it, please be reminded that there's a call for papers or call for proposals for applications to run the series next year. So at our second event in the series, we heard from Dr. Natalie Nenadic and Professor Cynthia Suhu about the legal mechanisms used to take action against a core tool of genocide, mass rape. Describing her work with survivors, Dr. Nenadic implored us to listen intently to all who suffer from the continuum of violence that is, and that is reflected by genocide. Through this plea, Dr. Nenadic reminded us that while a collective phenomenon, genocide's impacts are experienced at the level of individuals. In fact, it's often through these individual accounts that we come to understand genocide and mass violence. For example, it was a diary of one girl, Anne Frank, that introduced many of us to the Holocaust. It was a single hotel manager's bravery depicted in the 2004 Hollywood movie Hotel Rwanda that taught many of us about the Rwandan genocide. It was a development of a specific child soldier captured in the novel Beasts of No Nation that made many of us more aware of Africa's civil wars. And of course, it was The River Runs Salt, Runs Sweet, a memoir written by our guest, Jasmina Dervisevic-Cesic, that deepened our collective understanding of the Bosnian genocide. But what do we hear when we listen to these individual accounts, when we put our ears to the ground and immerse ourselves in the words and worlds of another? Significantly, we often hear our own voices. In talking with many of you, I know that you heard your experiences and Jasmina's stories of love and family. I know that you heard your family stories and her narrative of escape and immigration. And I, for one, heard echoes of my own experiences of sleepovers and dance marathons and ice cream dates, and Jasmina's accounts of her late 20th century, pre-Civil War childhood, or more precisely, her girlhood. Girls' studies is a specific field of gender research that takes the socialization experiences of girls seriously, investigating what it means to be a girl in a specific time and place and in relationships to other gender categories. When we take the context and the content of girls' lives seriously, we realize the differences and recognize the similarities across all girls' experiences. Yet what girls' studies scholars must also attend to are those differences and similarities that emerge across one girl's life, how the content and meaning of a single girlhood are changed by events in the world and the moment in which that girl lives. Jasmina's accounts of growing up, of being a girl before, during, and after the Bosnian genocide make this abundantly clear. So please join me in welcoming Jasmina Dervisevic-Cesic, an individual with whom, through our reading of The River Runs Salt, Runs Sweet, we already feel such a deep connection. Jasmina lost her husband, her two brothers, her uncle, her grandmother, and countless friends, as well as her right arm in the Bosnian genocide. She was the first Bosnian refugee granted permission to seek medical care here in the United States. Now, more than 20 years later, she has two grown children, a degree in business administration, and her own real estate company in the Boston area. She's here today to share more of her story with us and to answer your questions. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you so much for coming and for having me here. I know there are so many other places, better places where you could be, and you decided to be here, so I'm very thankful to you. You already know my name, and I know many of you read my book, and I feel like you probably know me, but I want to tell you that I was about your age, or maybe a year or two older than you, when I came here to the United States, when I left my country of Bosnia. And actually, for the most part that I lived in Bosnia, and that's why you have this map up there, Bosnia was a part of former Yugoslavia, and that's where I spent my life. And Yugoslavia consisted of these 6 republics: Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, and Macedonia. Was a place where Muslims, Jews, Orthodox Serbs, Catholic Croats lived next door to each other, went to school together, and intermarried. And though we had like exclusive Muslim villages, Croats villages, or Serbs villages, all our cities of any size were very integrated and tolerant. And stories that we heard from our grandparents, like what the Chetniks, Serbs nationalists, had done to the Muslims during World War II, and how neighbor turned against neighbor, were basically just that, stories, and we seldom gave them a second thought. We youngsters really thought that that had nothing to do with us. It was ancient history. We lived in Yugoslavia, the cherished brotherhood and unity, and that's what we lived for. And being like your age, all I could care about is like to get the right shoes for a right party. You know how it goes, like where to go during summer vacations. And we really thought that Yugoslavia was the safest place on earth. And my teammates and I enjoyed traveling all over Yugoslavia, through all republics of Yugoslavia, competing with different teams. Like sport was a big part of our life, and mine in particular. As you read in the book, I was on the swimming team. And I have to tell you, I was never as good as my older sister, who was the best swimmer in our region. But I was the best ping pong player in my hometown, which I didn't mention in the book. And I coached younger kids. But then in 1990 actually, Yugoslavia began to break apart. The communism fell, and what was once called our normal life suddenly changed. The Yugoslav National Army, which was the 4th largest in Europe, and which every boy, including my siblings, had to serve for 1 full year, became property of the Serbs. And it turned its guns against its own people. And imagine that this army went to a people whose slogan was, "Kill everybody who is not a Serb, and bring and unite all the Serbs into one nation called Greater Serbia." And they started to accomplish this goal in 1991, when Yugoslavia, actually the Yugoslav army, attacked Slovenia, which is the furthest from Serbia. But Slovenia, being the furthest, close to Austria, had a very small Serbian population that didn't support the Yugoslav army, and the war lasted only 7 days, but it quickly expanded into neighboring Croatia. So the Yugoslav army, supported by the local Serbs that made 12% of the Croatian population, had killed many there. They destroyed cities, and severely actually damaging Dubrovnik, which you probably heard of, the ancient city and the Croatian the Croatian board, yes. That was, I think, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful cities in the world. You should go and visit. And in April, actually, of 1992, with the dream of Greater Serbia, they attacked Bosnia when Alija Izetbegović, the president of Bosnian multi-ethnic government, asked for independence for Bosnia and was recognized as independent by the United States and the European Union. But that recognition with outside protection or some kind of intervention created a total disaster. So all the cities which were in eastern Bosnia, like my hometown of Visegrad, on the border with Serbia and the Drina River, were already fallen to the Serbs and suffered tremendous atrocities. So people in my hometown, we knew that we were next in line. So shooting from the hills around Visegrad became right after. people in my hometown, knowing that we had nothing to defend ourselves with, we had no weapons like regular people, and we stood no chance against Yugoslav National Army, which I mentioned was the fourth largest army in Europe. We had no choice but to flee. So majority, if not all, Muslims from my hometown escaped to Gorazde, a town which was only 50 miles from Visegrad, where we felt safer. And then 5 days later, the Serbs made a proclamation that our lives would be safe again, that schools and the factories will stay open, and everything would be normal again. So majority of Muslims from my hometown, including most of my family members, went back, and my two brothers, my two older brothers, my newlywed husband, whom I married just 3 months before the war broke out, and I went to Sarajevo, the capital city of Bosnia, which we naively thought was a safe haven. So as soon as we arrived in Sarajevo, in April of 1992, the Yugoslav army surrounded the city with their tanks and cannons and started shelling. So they set up fires to the mosques, to the libraries, to the houses, and to the post office that was our contact between my hometown of Visegrad, where my family was, and Sarajevo, the capital city where my brothers, my husband, and I was. And those days, I had no contact with my family, and in fact, we had a very little contact with the outside world at all. There was a radio operator in our building that could get messages in and out, and we would receive broadcast news when we had electricity. But there were so many times when I wished that we didn't have electricity, and I wasn't able to watch the news and learn about atrocities that were taking place in my hometown. We were hearing news how people being burned alive in their houses, how people being killed on our famous bridge on the Drina in my hometown. And I had no idea if my family was dead or alive. So one day, my brother brought me a news of a phone call, and he said that most Muslims are being expelled to central Bosnia from my hometown, and if you call there, they will give you the list of people that arrived there, and that he already called, but my family's name was not on that list. And that I should check again, like next morning with our radio operator that was in the building. So needless to say, I didn't sleep at all. I was just waiting for the morning to see what's gonna happen. So my brothers and my husband went to the front lines, and I went to see the radio operator. And as soon as I opened the door of that room, he said, "Your family arrived." And I started like jumping out of joy that they came, and he cut me, and he said, "Jasmina, your father is not with them, neither is your brother." So I froze. I was confused, and the scenario of ethnic cleansing that the Serbs played was pretty much the same in all over Bosnia. Only women and kids were permitted on the convoy, and no men ages between 18 and 65 were allowed to leave. So I could understand that my father could not make it, but my brother Samer was only 15 years old. His age, though, made no difference to this murderer, Milan Lukic, who killed my brother, and another boy his age, in very sophisticated manner, because you have to understand, for murderers like them, a crime without some amusement is not satisfaction. So they threw Samer from the bridge and shot at him on the way down as for a target practice. And then they did the same to the second boy, who escaped the killing from his hometown of Foča just to be murdered in Visegrad. And the third boy, who was abducted from the street, while Almir, Samer's twin, watched from the windows of my parents' house, survived by God's willing to bear a witness to this crime. And he actually was a witness in The Hague, International Criminal Tribunal in The Hague for this crime. So, and my father, which we learned later, was taken to concentration camp, and he was on his way to the woods to hide when they took him. And ironically to say, a boy who took him was actually from my class, who took him to concentration camp. So more than 3,000 people were brutally murdered, like my brother Samir in my hometown, including my best high school friend, who was killed with his father on the bridge while his sister and his mother watched. And 2 of my swimming teammates were killed in the same way. Many others were burned alive in their houses, like my grandmother, who was 85 years old. And I have to tell you that my grandmother's family actually was burned alive in World War II, most of them. So she went through the same thing 50 years later. Many women and girls I knew were raped, and the rest of the Muslim population was forced to leave the city, besides those that were taken to concentration camp, like my father. So my mother and my surviving siblings and my very pregnant sister-in-law were forced to leave the city, and they were expelled to central Bosnia. That was under the Bosnian control. And the life that we lived in Sarajevo, if I can even call it life, was not any better. We didn't have access to drinkable water in the besieged city. We didn't have enough food. And that wasn't even our biggest problem. The biggest problem were the snipers and the constant shelling that killed and wounded many in Bosnia. Hospitals became full, and that's when I, like many other Bosnian women, decided that I should do something, so I started to volunteer in the hospital. Unfortunately, my help didn't last long. One morning, my husband and I were waiting for a bus to take us to work when a mortar fell next to us. And I didn't know immediately what had happened. When I opened, I thought I was like flying. And when I opened my eyes, I was laying on the ground, and my arm was hanging off the bone. And I turned my head, and then I saw my husband blown in half. And then I saw so many other people, like being without arm or a leg, laying on the ground. And people start screaming and taking us into blankets, into cars. And I saw a UN car passing us by, and they didn't even stop. They just kept going. And then they took Dad to the first hospital, and us wounded they take to the second hospital, which was the main hospital of Sarajevo, and ironically, my final destination. That's where I was going, the first place for work. And in the hospital, I don't even have to tell you how it was. We never had enough food, we didn't have electricity, and there was no enough anesthesia ever. So there were many, many times I had to stuff sheets in my mouth to ease the pain. But even that was much easier than seeing like these poor kids, small kids without an arm or an eye or a leg. And those days, I felt like my pain was endless. Only 3 months later, my older brother was killed, and my other brother, Duty, called him out of Sarajevo. So without them around, and my husband being dead, I had no family of my own in Sarajevo. So that's when I decided I had to leave no matter what. And I felt like Serbs have to kill me to keep me there. The UN refused to help me to get out from the besieged city, even though Children's Hospital in Boston offered its help and better medical treatment. The UN said that my injuries were not life-threatening, and if they take me out from Sarajevo, that would mean taking sides and helping in the ethnic cleansing. So the only way out from Sarajevo to the central Bosnia, where my family was was a through UN control passage at the Sarajevo airport that was situated between Serb strongholds. And at the very end of this corridor, there were deep trenches filled with barbed wire. So the UN would control this passage in their armored vehicle, and they would shine lights on any Bosnian they caught trying to cross. And if they caught you trying to cross their corridor, they would line you up, search you for weapons, take you into their vehicles and take you back to the city. So, and the worst part, actually, of this UN policy was this shining lights on people. Every time the Serbs saw lights shining on Bosnians, they would start shooting. So many people died from snipers, from shooting at that airport, trying to escape. But many also didn't mind the risk, because crossing from Sarajevo into central Bosnia meant that you could go from there to Croatia, and from Croatia, someone could manage to go anywhere in Europe. So one night I left with my mother-in-law and 4 other women who were actually going back and forth all the time to bring food from central Bosnia to Sarajevo to feed their kids. And when I need some water. And when I was like halfway through, the UN caught me. And back then I didn't speak a word of English. And I learned this one line because my sister-in-law was American, and she taught me how to say, "I lost my arm, I need better medical treatment, can you help me?" So I tried that line, and they ignored me. So, well, I ignored them too. As soon as they took us back, we started out again. And the second time, we made it all the way through. But it wasn't the end of my journey. As soon as I was reunited with my family, I was trying to find a way how to get to Croatia and then to Europe, somewhere in Europe, from where I could go to the United States. So I took a bus from Bosnia to Croatia, and then from Croatia to Slovenia, and then friends of friends took us from Slovenia to Austria, where I stayed a month with my sister-in-law, my dead husband's sister, who lived in Austria at that time. And then a truck driver this is totally illegal, by the way, so I have to tell you. A truck driver risked his job, who worked in Austria, to take me to Germany, because I had some friends in Germany, and American embassy in Frankfurt was very close to this city, Wiesbaden, where I stayed, and where I had some friends who could help me. And finally, on May 30th, 1993, I flew to Boston on a free first-class ticket generously provided by Swiss Air, and with help of Senator Joseph Biden, our vice president now, and John Kerry, because my sister-in-law asked them to write letters for me when they told me that I have to wait in Germany for 6 months, and there was no way I could stay there for 6 months. I really needed to be in the hospital. And I already had, as I mentioned, Children's Hospital in Boston who could help me, so I needed to get here as soon as possible. So my sister-in-law asked senators if they would write letters for me, and they did. So when I received those letters in Germany, I have to tell you, and I went to Catholic Charities to pick up those letters when she faxed me. And I went there, and they said, "Who are you?" I have to be honest with you, I had no idea who those senators were or what those letters said, because I didn't speak a word of English, or I just knew those letters were supposed to help me, and that's it. And so I came to the United States, and it was the end of my suffering, but unfortunately it wasn't the end of my country's suffering. The very same year I came to the United States, the Serbs had set up their own Republic of Srpska within the borders of newly recognized Bosnia. And the Serbs, with the help of the Yugoslav National Army, was in control of nearly 3/4 of the country. And the UN refused to intervene, apart from sending some troop convoys for humanitarian aid. And later, its peacekeeping force called UNPROFOR undertook to protect 6 safe areas that they created, including the capital city of Bosnia, Sarajevo, and almost every safe area, so-called, fell to the Serbs, and it was ethnically cleansed. So you probably heard that in 1995, the Serbs committed the worst massacre in Europe since World War II, when they, in Srebrenica, and this is a small town also in eastern Bosnia, close to my hometown, that was one of the 6 safe areas that UN created. So they systematically rounded up more than 8,000 Muslims and killed, and most of them were boys and men. And among those killed actually were my sister-in-law, 2 brothers, and father. So our President Barack Obama called, quote, a stain on our collective consciousness. So he admitted, and this was read for him in Srebrenica a few years back, that international community failed to protect the enclave. But I think, as bad as it was something that opened eyes to the world and to many, because only 3 months later, the Dayton Peace Agreement that ended the war in Bosnia was signed. And although it allowed the Serbs to keep what they gained in the ethnic cleansing, it helped the killing of innocent civilians. And a few years ago, the Serbian government actually issued an apology for the massacre in Srebrenica. And I know no apology, no matter what, will bring back my brothers and my husband, or my sister-in-law, 2 brothers and her father. But we really, Bosnians, hope that such an apology will open the door to a brighter future for new generations. And we really hope that the crime will have no color, race, or religion, and it should be punished if it cannot be stopped. And we really need to know for once and for all that we are all in this together, and what happens to one person has an effect on others. And if we think that we are kind of separate, separateness is an illusion, I think. And recent events in Paris show that just that ISIS is not just Syrian problem, it's our common problem. We all fight it, and it doesn't have a religion. No religion, their religion, I think it's terrorism, it's profit, it's money. No religious person can do such a thing, I think, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. And that's why I would like to read you. I know most of you read my book, but I think this part is very important, and I would like us to read together. Some people have asked me about forgiveness. When will I be able to forgive the Serbs? I lost so much. I am angry. In some ways, forgiveness is the wrong thing to ask me about, because I think it's better to speak instead of justice and healing. Do I want revenge? No. I also don't want war crimes to go unpunished. To do nothing about rape camps and the massacre of helpless prisoners invites more such crimes in other places in the future. The certainty of eventual punishment may deter such acts in other wars. Certainly not punishing such act is a great risk. We must not dwell on the past, but we must protect the future. There must be justice without revenge, and there must be healing. There must be, between one person and the next, true peace. I take my father as my example. In the Chetnik concentration camp, he was tortured. All of his teeth were removed. I don't know the details. He won't speak about them. He says that we must pay less attention to our past and more attention to our lives now. Part of our lives now is remembering to see other human beings, one person at a time. We are here to help each other, not just the people who are just like us, but the people who we find at our doorstep in need, whoever they are. So senators, that means Syrian refugees too. If we do that in bitter times or sweet times, then we are healing our own hearts and the world's. We are living the life I once lived in Visegrad, where we did not first ask someone in need, but are you Muslim? Are you a Serb? Thank you. I want to show you a few pictures too. I mean, this is not a great picture because when I escaped from my hometown, I didn't bring any pictures, and pictures that I got were either from friends that saved them or some mailed me. Or so. This is the old picture from an elementary school, my ping pong team. All the way on the right, it's me, and all the way on the left, it's my younger sister, Amira. And two of those girls are actually Serbs. So it tells you that it didn't matter. We all played together. We all played on the same team. Religion really was not important at all. This is my swimming team. Also, picture is not great, but I want to show you this because, again, there are some Serbs, some Muslims, and I mentioned you in my speech that two of my swimming teammates were brutally murdered. So two of them are here. Two of them that are sitting, one all the way on the left, and then the third one from the left. Those are two that were killed. And their remains were found 2 years ago in a mass grave that was discovered in my hometown. This is my high school class. And I don't know if you can find me in this picture. But this guy in the jeans jacket, he's our teacher, and I'm one with a green sweater over that blonde boy, and that blonde boy that is holding my shoulders actually is my best high school friend, whom I also mentioned in my speech that he was killed with his father on the bridge. So he was playing ping pong with me, and we traveled a lot together. He was my best high school friend, and I lost him. And the teacher was Serb, but it didn't matter. This is me and my best two high school friends, and the reason I'm showing you this is a picture from my graduation. My generation was the last generation that graduated in my hometown, and this was 91. The war broke out in 92, in April of 92. So this was even less than a year before the war broke out. We all were together, happy, not knowing what it's gonna be in a few months. So I'm in the black dress. Once I had nice legs. But that was a long time ago. This is Sarajevo before the war, the capital city of Bosnia. I just wanted to show you how it looked like. It's a beautiful city. It's mostly rebuilt now, if not all of it. It's a very nice place to visit if you guys feel like traveling. And there is also no drinking age in Europe. I'm just kidding, but Sarajevo is really beautiful, especially in August when we have film festival and the seas and mountains are very close to each other. Like if you go to Italy, down to Croatia and Bosnia, there is plenty to see. And there are many. This past summer, there was in town Mostar, where I have my house now, they had Red Cliff diving. So divers from, the best divers from all over the world came to Bosnia, and it was beautiful to see. This is 1984 Winter Olympics in Sarajevo. I just wanted to show you that it was home to, Sarajevo was home to 1984 Winter Olympics, and once it was a city that welcomed everyone. This is your team, USA team, in 1984. This is my hometown on Visegrad, and the bridge that you see, it's the famous bridge. It's called the Bridge on the Drina. And actually, Ivo Andrić won a Nobel Prize writing about it. The book was translated in 40 languages, and you can find in any library in the United States. So if you feel like you want to learn more about history, about my hometown, you can get this book, Bridge on the Drina by Ivo Andrić. And this is where my best friend and most of Muslims from my hometown were killed. They would be brought to this bridge and thrown into the river. This is the sports center. For those of you who read my book, that's where we spent like a lot of our times hanging around, playing guitar, and our August swimming competition happened also there, and soccer competitions. As I mentioned to you, sport was really a big part of our life. This is the dam, the hydroelectric dam. It's not as big as Hoover Dam, but it was as big enough to use that we could use as a shield. It was our first attempt to trying back down the Serbs from shooting us and taking the city. And this man called Murat Shabanovic actually was bluffing that he planted explosive, that he's going to blow up this dam if they don't back down. But they called his bluff, so we had no choice but to flee. This is Sarajevo, how it looked during the besiege. There was no building that was not destroyed. Everything was completely destroyed. One that from the second that's sitting next to that girl is my oldest brother, who was killed after I got out from the hospital. And the picture was taken during the war in Bosnia. This is my brother Samer, and it is the only picture my family has of him, so I couldn't show you a better picture. This is probably from his first grade, but as I mentioned, he was 15 years old when he was killed. This is the bridge where he was taken and where he was killed. And this is my husband, and he was my first love and my only boyfriend. Not that I was sane, but I had oldest brother who was always watching over me, so I only had one boyfriend, and we were together for 4 years. And before the war, we kind of see that things were changing, and we got married before we actually. It wasn't very usual for a Bosnian girl to marry when you were 19, but we married because we knew something was gonna happen. I don't think anyone could imagine what is going to happen. We just knew that something is going to happen, but not as bad as it was, not even nearly as bad as it was. This is something that is happening right now. I told you that mass grave was discovered in my hometown of Visegrad 2 years ago, and where my 2 teammates were discovered, and my best high school friend, and so many people from my street that I knew. So they were all buried in this cemetery that you can see on the picture, and the monument was built. So what happened 2 years ago, it bothered local officials, and the local people of Visegrad were the genocide. So they scrapped the word genocide from the stone monument. So genocide word is not there anymore. And this is what is happening every year in Sarajevo. They line up red chairs. Each chair represents a fallen victim of the besieged city during the war. And as you can see, the number, it's 11,541, and many of those were actually kids. This is my family now. Life goes on, whatever happened to you. So this is my husband now. And this year in April was our 20th anniversary. And this is my daughter. She's older now. She's 15 now. My kids again, Alem and Leila. This is Alem. My kids, they're my phoenix, I guess. Legacy lives. They're swimmers too. So he swims. Leila swims too. This is her gold medal at Bay State. I don't know, you're not from Massachusetts, but Bay State games are very big in Massachusetts. And this is at Harvard University. She won gold medal for 800 free. I'm very proud mom, I have to. And it's not good pictures because I'm a technology idiot. I don't know how to take pictures. But this is in my hometown, and picture was taken 2 years ago when I took my kids to see the bridge where my brother was killed, to see them, to see the grave of my older brother, and to see this bridge where many people were killed. And so they went around and they saw everything. And that's the end of the show. There was something else I wanted to show you, which is my graduation party. But unfortunately, things happen, and I'm sorry. As I was pulling out the DVD, it broke. And I wanted to show there was a dance, just the way of life we lived before the war, and that we hope to return to also, and Bosnia slowly but surely is returning to. But there is another DVD which you cannot see me, but you can see the way of dance and life. If you wish to see it, I can show it to you. Are you?
Just play?
Yeah. How they dance, it's like a traditional Bosnian dance that you all do. And I don't know if they're gonna take you to the teacher table. One of the teachers who was actually my homeroom teacher was a man mastermind behind all killings in my hometown. He's still at large, and they're trying to capture him. So he's in this video. We had no idea. You can guys keep watching, and if you don't mind me talking, I would like to just tell you a little bit about the book. Okay. You can watch and listen to me. As I said, this was in 1991, and we were last generation that graduated in my hometown. So all Serbs and Muslims, we didn't have so many Croats or Jews in our hometown, just a few. We all were here together, and all teachers were together. And one of the teachers, who was actually my homeroom teacher and very good friend of mine, because he was my coach as well, was a mastermind behind all killings in my hometown. He actually was in control of everything. So he escaped, and he's still at large, and he's wanted by International Criminal Tribunal in The Hague and by Serbian government as well. But I don't know if he's going to be captured soon or not. And ironically enough, first time when I went back to my hometown, he was living in our apartment. Yes, that was a shock, but that's what happened. I want to just tell you how the title came. The river runs salt, runs sweet. It refers to the Drina River in my hometown. It was the river where I met my husband for the first time. It was the river where we had our swimming competitions. It was the river where we hang around a lot, and where we played guitars and everything, where we had happy life. And unfortunately, it became the biggest mass grave in Bosnia, and it probably still is now. And that's where they discovered that mass grave. It was in that river when they were fixing a lake. And a few reasons how the book came about. One of the reasons it was, which I didn't mention in the book, I never wrote the book before, but I like to write, and I was involved in writing a lot. I wrote so many poems, and pen, paper, and I were kind of very best friend when I got emotional, when I had crush on a boy, or my friend had a crush on a boy. I would write a poem. So I liked writing, and it was kind of healing process for me, just putting everything that was inside me onto the paper. The second reason is, as I mentioned, that my grandmother was burned alive in her house 50 years after her family was burned alive, and history repeats. And she would tell us about this, and we thought that was ancient history. We didn't pay attention, and probably because we didn't have anything like that we could see or read. Or so I thought if I had something in writing, it doesn't even have to be published. I didn't even know it's going to be the book that's going to be published or read by so many schools in the United States. I just wrote it for the future generations. And the third reason, I felt bad for all people that die in my hometown, including my brothers and my husband, and I thought through my book I can keep them alive. People will read about them, talk about them, so I can keep them alive. And the fourth reason, and the most important reason, I didn't know, like when I came, so many people asked me, are you mad? Do you hate? Do you want revenge? Things like that. I don't think like tragedy can change you that much. I mean, at least for me, I can speak for myself, it made me just stronger. And I wasn't brought ever to hate, and that's one thing I'm very proud of that Serbs couldn't take from me. They took my brothers, my town, my husband, my arm, but they couldn't take my love from me. So I thought if I can like engage people all together, teach them what had happened in Bosnia and what can happen anywhere in the world, and that there are things that they can do to make a difference. So that's, and even when I came here, I didn't speak a word of English, so first ESL classes I took at the Jewish Vocational Service in Boston. My teachers who were Jewish came to all our demonstrations when we held to lift the arms embargo in Bosnia to defend ourselves. Unfortunately, it didn't work, but we all worked together on this, and the book helped a lot. So that was one of the main reasons how the book came about. My life now, Amy already mentioned, I remarried. My husband is also from Bosnia. He also came straight from concentration camp to Boston. First time when we went out, he didn't even have anything. The only clothes that he actually had was what the Red Cross gave him when he was leaving Bosnia, actually Croatia. So first time when we went out, I bought him sneakers and jeans, so he has something to wear. So we were like zero, had nothing. I was badly wounded. I didn't speak English. He didn't speak English. I learned some because I came first. But we started from nothing, and right now we're doing pretty well. I mean, we have our own house. We have investment property. We bought a house in Mostar in 2006. Mostar is the part, you know, how you have Bosnia and Herzegovina. So Mostar is in Herzegovina. That's where he's from. So we have a house there, and we go there every year. My kids get to swim in the Adriatic Sea that you saw on the map, which is beautiful. My parents are still alive. His parents are still alive, and we go every year in August. And the reason we're going there actually in August is because my daughter is crazy about swimming, and there is amateur athletic games every year in the United States that run from the end of July to August 2nd. So we always have to wait for her to finish that, and then we go to Bosnia next day. So it's a lot of traveling. After I took some ESL classes, I went to Harvard Extension, where I took more English classes. Then I went to college, and I got a degree in business administration. And as soon as I finished college, I started working for a small real estate company in Boston doing bookkeeping. And it was a time when so many Bosnians started coming that I helped a lot. Like, many of you are guys immigrants, and you probably know when you come here, you have to open, you don't know what credit history. I mean, at least I didn't know. In Bosnia, everything was cash. There is no like credit cards or credit history. Now it is, but back then it wasn't. So my sister-in-law taught me what credit history is, that you need to open credit card, and I taught other Bosnians as they were coming along. And so many lived, our house was like a train station. Every Bosnian that came went through our house. So. And also, I kind of learned through that you have to do something for someone else in order to flourish. So it was helping others helped me. And it helped me also when I start doing real estate, because when I started working for this real estate company and I was starting to tell my boss, like, such and such want a condo, such and such want a house, and she said, you have all these leads, you should be a real estate agent. I didn't even know how you get a license, and I said, can I work for you if I get a license? She said, of course. So I went for a license, and I hit a lottery, I think. So I became a very successful real estate, and few years later, I opened my own real estate company. When I had my boy, actually in 2006, I opened my own real estate company. And that's what I've been doing since then. I'm also doing property management, and that's like my business side. And the other side is doing a lot of public speaking, and I've been traveling a lot lately. The one event that I have to mention where students really surprised me, it was in Texas A&M University. There was this event that it's called One Book, One Event, when they choose one book to be read that year. Their university and Laredo Public Library, and they chose mine. And when I went there, like, my posters were all over the city. Everyone read the book, and it was just, I felt like a rock star. I mean, and that was wonderful. So I wanted you to leave with something positive. So that's how I want to end it. Thank you.
You're welcome. We have microphones and we have questions. So please use the microphones that are set up to ask any questions that you have.
I have to tell you before you even start, I'm really a very open person. Whatever I can answer, I will, if I can.
I know there are a lot of questions over here.
Well, before I don't want to ask a question. I want to tell you thank you for writing the book.
Thank you.
Because you taught me a lot about my own history. I was born in Kosovo, and my father and my mother, they were in the war while it was happening with the Serbs and stuff like that. My grandparents also told me about it, stuff like that, and I was like, oh, it probably wasn't that big. But when I read your book, and like reading the struggle you had to go through taught me a lot. I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I just wanted to ask you if you've still kept contact with any of your old childhood friends from Bosnia?
Yes, my two best friends, I see them every year when I go there. We always get together. I talk to some now with all this technology, Facebook and all that. You get them, you get to talk to them on Facebook. And this year we are actually trying to gather like all of our friends, if we can like make it, because many of them live somewhere in Europe or Australia or United States, if we can all meet in Bosnia at the same time and have like a party.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, first I would like to say it's an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
The book was great. I would read it on the train and try to like stop back tears from reading it. But my question to you is, would you have changed experiencing life going through the war?
I didn't hear the last part.
I said, usually people say you have to go through what you went through to be who you are today. Would you have changed anything that you went through?
Not really. I'm really happy. And as much suffering that I had, I feel also like that I was very fortunate as well, especially since I came to the United States. I met so many wonderful people from all over the world, different religions, that helped me through a lot, and I was able to help. Because of their help, I was able to help others.
I have another question.
Thank you.
I've noticed that you wrote like the seasons under starting from chapter 5 and then 19, and then you started over again. Like, I wanted to know, why did you do that?
Oh, I don't know how it is. I actually started my book a year after I came to the United States. My English was very limited, and I just was explaining them how I did it. I wrote in English, and what I would do, I had a friend named Joanna who lived across my apartment. She didn't speak Bosnian, and as I said, my English was limited. So I would write from like early in the morning from 8 o'clock until 5, and Joanna would come around 5 to fix my grammar, and we did that for a year.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I just want to ask you, when did you start writing this book, and how long you took for write it?
As I just said, I started a year after I came to the US, and it was because the war was like horrible in my country, and my family was still there, and they were suffering, so I thought with the book I can do something. And my English was very limited. I wrote in English, but it took me a year.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
First off, I wanted to say that your book, I loved it because I never read a book in high school. Like, I'd always pretend, but yours, I read it.
I appreciate honesty.
I read it from cover to cover, and I liked it a lot. So I just want to know, how was it like coming to the United States, and was it different from Bosnia, and how were the people?
For those of you who haven't been in that part of the world, Bosnia before the war, like the way of life was pretty much the same like of any American girl. I mean, I grew up watching 90210, and I have to tell you something. When my brother married American journalist during the war, all I was thinking was like, oh my God, Hollywood beaches, Beverly Hills, Florida. That's what I had in mind. But it changed.
All right, thank you.
Hi. First, I want to start off by thanking you so much for kind of sharing your story with everyone and really bringing like such honesty to a time and helping us to somehow understand what that was like and that experience for you. My question is just, when you were going through, all these different experiences that were so traumatic and facing all this injustice, how did you get yourself to keep going, as you were just hearing more and more things that were happening? Was there something you said to yourself or something you thought about?
It was always something that sustained me. The hardest thing for me, I think, when I go back, when I think about it, it's when I was leaving my hometown. Because I was newly married, and I was just start enjoying my new home and my husband, and then things start going bad. And when we had to leave, I felt like my whole world is broken. And then one thing after the other, you just get used to it. You think that's the way of life, and there is always something that you fight for. You think of your parents, what if I do this? And then when I came to the United States, my parents were there. My father was still in concentration camp. My brother, who was commandant in the Bosnian army, he was in Gorazde, which was one of the safe areas that was about to fall. And I was like, I have to do something, so I have to be strong for them. I have to learn English. I have to find a job. I have to send money overseas to help them. And it was always something and our families, that's probably something that helped me. We were always very close, my brothers and sisters, and I would do anything for my brothers and sisters, for my parents, so I really wanted to be strong for them. And I also didn't want Serbs to get revenge if they destroy me too. So my success was the best revenge, I thought.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. That's a very tough question. I asked these Holocaust survivors how they do it, like how much I should tell them. I don't want them. I'm always afraid if I tell them too much, I don't want to bring hate or hate other sides. So I'm trying to be very like that they read on their own, and if they ask me questions, I answer questions. And it happened to me when I took my kids to Visegrad, and we were standing next to my brother's grave, and my son said, "Oh, how do you feel, Mom? Is it hard? And why did they do this to you if you said they were your friends?" And you were like speechless. You don't know what to say. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if they changed overnight or they were always had those second thoughts. But now that everything is going on in the world, and when you're thinking about it, it makes sense. It's very easy to manipulate. And this is something I think, I mean, I don't want to preach because I do not have PhD in history or politics, but I went through enough that I can tell you this. I mean, you have to kind of, if you want to kill a plant, you know, this is a common sense. You have to kill its roots. Sprinkling a flower will come back. So that's what happened in Yugoslavia. It was a clear Serbian aggression. They started from Slovenia. Everyone could see it. If they stopped it there, it would be stopped. So they let it happen. They called it civil war. They just changed words. They then moved to Croatia, to Bosnia. And when the Dayton Peace Agreement was signed, nothing changed on the ground. They could do that in '92 before it was over. So what I'm trying to say is you don't put fire on fire. That's what I'm trying to teach kids. You don't bring hate, like you're hearing this in media, oh, the Islamic State. I mean, I am Muslim, and I hate those people. They're terrorists. They're horrible. And they don't present me, and please do not kill in my name. And that's, and you in media, you're always hearing this, and I want you to know that vast majority of their victims are actually Muslims. They're killing people in Syria. And you don't hear this very often, and that's what happened in Bosnia. So I want my kids also to know, and I teach them, and this is what many people don't know. This is what they did in Bosnia. They said it's a civil war between three sides. Let me tell you something. I worked in the hospital, main hospital of Sarajevo, and I worked in that building where you had the main kitchen. 4 main cook were 2 Serbs, 2 Croats. And they called it like Muslim army. It wasn't, yes, of course, majority was Muslims because that's Muslims, majority of population of Bosnia was Muslims. But 2 of them, and the doctor who controlled incoming food, Dr. Svetlana Zojec, was Serb. And we had the generals in Bosnian army who were Croats, who were Serbs. We still do. Bosnia has always been multi-ethnic, and it will be multi-ethnic. You cannot change that fact. And that's what I'm trying to teach my kids. There are bad Serbs, but you cannot. And I have to mention something. Do we have time? I don't. 2 years ago, I was speaking at Tufts University, and we had a genocide panel, like survivors from Cambodia, Rwanda, Sudan. And when I finished and I talked about my hometown, and because that word genocide that was scraped from the stone monument, I mentioned that. And at the end, a moderator was asking a question, and the boy was sitting down and like shaking and asking a question. A moderator asked him, "Can you please stand up?" And he said, "I would if I could, but I really can't." He was shaking. He was literally crying. Then he finally stood up and he said, "I am a Serb, and I'm from East Sarajevo. And that's a part of Sarajevo that's under Republic of Srpska." So I need to go back to show you a map of Bosnia now. I cannot do that here. So he said, "I just want to hug you and tell you how much I learned today because my girlfriend is actually from your hometown. I heard about this genocide thing and I talk about it, but my parents wouldn't tell me anything what was going on. We only knew that they went somewhere during the war, but we didn't know where they went or what they did. So I learned something today. And he kept following me after the speech, and he asked me for coffee, so we're still in touch. So we went around and we hugged each other, and like so many students cried that day. And it was maybe one student, but that's where you start to change. And it's not easy for me to tell my story over and over. But Dr. Martin Luther King said the world will come to an end when we become silent about things that matter. And these things matter, I think.
I have one more question. Hello?
There is a map of Bosnia. I just
on the
wanted
web?
to share. Yeah.
There's not this one. In your PowerPoint or on the web?
If you go back, it's on the computer. He saved it on the desk.
I think you have another question in here.
Okay.
I'll pull it up. You want to go ahead? Oh,
She started.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to know, would you ever let your children read your book?
They're reading my book.
Oh, they read it already?
Yes. My son this is the map, by the way, of Bosnia and Herzegovina. I just wanted to show you what the Dayton Peace Agreement did and how they split country in two parts. You have a Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina in green, and yellow is Republic of Srpska. And it's a big problem. I mean, it was a very good solution to stop the war and to stop the killing of innocent civilians. But even its creator, Richard Holbrooke, who recently died, said, and I listened to him actually, I was sitting in front of him at the United Nations here in New York when he said that it wasn't to be a permanent thing. Unfortunately, we are still stuck with that.
First of all, I want to tell you thank you for your book. And my questions about the whole book. You tell about something, how some people critics your book. And I would like to ask you, how these books affect or affect in your own life and life your family?
My book?
Yep.
My family, unfortunately, I'm trying to translate the book I don't have book in Bosnian, so many members of my family cannot read it. Yes, my brothers who are living in the United States and speak English, but like I have a sister who lives in Austria, she said, I wish I can read it. My best friends cannot read it, so I have to translate the book. But it changed my life because I think it educated so many students around the United States, and especially when you go like on the other side of the United States, as I mentioned, Texans, and you hear these students. And I mentioned a book that I got for present to Amy and Dan, that students from high school, one public high school in Boston, made me after my speech. They, without even help of their professors or anything, they were taking pictures as I was speaking. I wasn't even aware of that, and they made me a book with a hardcover, and on the hardcover they put a bridge, salt and pepper bridge from Boston, Cambridge, like going into Mostar Bridge, which is famous bridge in Bosnia.
Yeah. I have one additional question. It's burning right now. Are you going to continue a career like as a writer? Maybe
I'm working on my second book. It's very hard to be inspirational now, and I don't have much time because I'm always running out between my family, my kids, and their activities. It's hard to find time, but hopefully by next year I will have it done.
What's the title?
Thank you.
Still thinking about it.
Thank you.
First of all, this book was amazing. As previously mentioned by the other student, it's true, like when my professor said, oh, you're gonna have to read a book, I'm like, oh, really? I'm not really like into reading, but it was so interesting and informative and very emotional that I read it in like one night. Like I stayed up till 3 a.m. just finishing the book, so that, is really good.
Thank you.
In your book, you mentioned about when you were in the hospital, there was a boy, 13 years old, Samir, I think his name is. Would you consider his words till this day to be uplifting towards your success and towards like continuing your life with your family?
It is definitely rememberable, and I didn't know how much it affected me until 2 or 3 years ago. I went back to Bosnia, and I went to that part of the hospital where kids were staying. The way I reacted, I was embarrassed. My mother was with me, and I didn't expect me to do that. I started screaming, like so loud. I could see their faces. And I just didn't expect it to react that way or to feel that when I went there after so many years. So I still have his face in front of me and talking to me. And those kids were definitely very inspirational.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Just wanted to ask you, have you ever reunited with your neighbors, the Serbian neighbors? And if you did, what would you say to them?
I go to my hometown, which is, as you can see on the map, and my hometown is in eastern Bosnia, so it's under the Republic of Srpska, so there are no Muslims living in that town now. And I walk down the street. It feels like it's not my hometown. You recognize there are no people you know. So many new people came, people that I knew left the town. Even the Serbs that I knew left the town. So it's not the same. And I don't know what I would say. I have some friends on the Facebook. Some of them, like I have a friend whom brother we helped in Sarajevo, and we talk nicely, and then you have people who pretend that the war never happened. They will talk to you about anything and everything, but don't mention the war because that's where problem starts. And they will ask you like stupid questions. Can you send me like this type of shoes, or can you find me this in the United States and send me? It's like the war never happened.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. I just want to ask one question. When you mentioned what the way that can heal your heart, is it emotional? For instance, you have emotional crisis. How can you be able to overcome those emotional crises you have? You made mention of writing make you heal your mind. How?
It was writing, like putting my pen on the paper, believing in God and believing that there was a reason for everything. And like being loved by my friends, my brothers, my family, always around. And even when I came to the United States, I got help from, like, I have to tell you about a doctor that and this is something like that inspires you. I told you that my legs were badly wounded and I needed some surgeries on my legs, and Children's Hospital couldn't help me much there. And there was this doctor, Dr. Red Drugi, his name is, he's in Connecticut, still is, has his own private practice. He said he's gonna do everything for free if I come there every other Saturday. So my sister-in-law would drive me every other Saturday. Even his nurse wouldn't assist because she wasn't paid. And he wouldn't even let me to go to pay for lunch. He would bring me to his house and he would give me a lunch before I left. So when you, I don't know, as I said, as much as I was,
right,
I was fortunate as well to meet these people, and they inspire you to do the same thing for others.
Is there anything else?
Excuse me?
Is there anything else apart from writing?
Anything else besides writing?
Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, believing in God, and there is a reason for everything. That, and also that I didn't want Serbs to take that something from me, my strength, my love. And I thought my best revenge was my success.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Talk about more specifically kind of what's happening in the world so
I would, oh, don't get me started. First of all, my friends are doing this vigil in Boston, like all together, and they're wearing black, and they're gonna meet tonight. And unfortunately, my flight is leaving late, so I won't be able to be there. That we're all in this together, fighting this ISIS crisis and this poor Syrian refugee. First of all, my heart goes to everyone that, died in Paris. No one, knows better than I do, and most people from Bosnia, what happens when you go out and you have fun and the bomb just fell and you died. And I know it was Friday night, they probably went out to have fun and something happened. But it's even worse for Syrian refugees. They're escaping Assad's regime, they're escaping ISIS, and then everyone is turning their back. And that's what it's creating problems, I think, because people, they're making them desperate, and people being desperate, in desperate situation, you do awful things. Not all of them, but most of them. So I think closing borders is just creating more problems. It's not helping. And we need to start, like, I think, I said I do not have PhD in politics, but some things like are common sense. You have to start from Syria, helping them there, because you don't want them, this is my opinion, take them all out, because that's what ISIS want. ISIS also wants us to hate each other. That's why they're splitting the world into like Christians and Muslims. That's so stupid. Don't fall for that, because they're not presenting the religion. You're welcome.
Hi, how are you? First, I want to thank you for coming here today, and I have two questions. The first one is, what are your thoughts on the international community refusing to use the word genocide? And second of all, what do you think on how the media handles these situations, also refusing to use the word genocide?
In my hometown, when they scraped the word genocide from that stone monument that was unveiled for those fallen victims, it's because it offended the local Serbs. They didn't want to live in the town. They didn't feel like genocide happened. It was, and I have to tell you something, genocide is not just killing, or taking the territory. I don't know much about the Phoenician genocide, but I want to tell you from my experience, like my hometown, when it was fallen to the Serbs, almost all Muslims were already out from my hometown. They had the whole town. We were in Goražde, 50 miles away. They asked us to come back. And then they want to destroy you. They want to destroy your culture. They went through your graves. They destroyed every mosque in our town. They flattened them down. You could never tell that they existed. So genocide, it's like taking your roots. And that's what they don't want. They don't want that word genocide because they know what it means. I don't know if I explained enough, but thank you, Amy. Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry I'm late. First of all, the book was really moving to me, and I feel like, living in America, we haven't really, a lot of us haven't experienced what you have been through, and it was really a sense of realism for me, and it moved me a lot. So my question was, are you upset that your childhood was kind of ripped from you, and would you?
Am I upset? Can you speak louder?
I know that you had to grow up really fast, and if you would change it, would you? Or it was something that you had to go through?
I didn't hear.
Your childhood, I know that it was your transition into adulthood was really fast due to the war, and that if you would change it, could you?
I feel bad actually. for future generations, for a generation that were born during the war or after the war. Because of this Dayton Peace Agreement that split the country in half, there are kids that don't interact with other kids. So you guys should be fortunate, and I think we are privileged that we live here and you are exposed to so many cultures, so many religions, and so you can like share. And there are so many kids that I feel bad for, not for me, because I kind of had my childhood, very nice childhood. I was very happy. And I was 19 when everything started. But I feel bad for those generations that were born, that they don't know any better than shooting, war, like looking people by their religion, by their color or...
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.